Ross is now going to talk all the way from the other side of the world, and let's do this. Woo!
All right, thanks. So my name is Ross Kukulinski. I am the co-founder and CEO of a company called Yodler, and I also run Baynode, which is the San Francisco Bay Area's Node.js meetup. And I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about IOJS, which is really exciting developments here in the Node world. So let's get started. So first of all, a big disclaimer. All of these opinions are my own. There's a lot of history and side conversations that have gone on behind IOJS, behind the scenes, and I would love corrections and edits. So these slides are up on GitHub. And I also want to note that IOJS moves really fast. I just updated the slides yesterday, and then I had to update them again this morning. So it's entirely possible that they are already out of date. So please forgive me if something's not quite right. So just a little bit of Node.js background. So Node was originally created by Ryan Dahl, and it was the trademark. And so he was a Join employee, and Join eventually purchased the rights and licenses and everything from him. Node's MIT licensed, and the current organizational model, Node has a BDFL, or Benevolent Dictator for Life, and that's currently TJ Fontaine of Joyent. And taking a look back at sort of Node.js's release history, so Node's kind of often its Node core is special in its release plan in that Node, all of the even version numbers are considered stable, and then odd numbers are considered unstable. So Node core does not currently follow Semver. So Node 0.6 was originally November 5th, 2011. Not too long after that, to 0.8, 0.10. And now we've been in this period where Node, the latest version of Node to come out, 0.12, should be shipping in 2 weeks since early 2014. So another sort of interesting thing, Node has grown significantly. So looking at the bottom graph, we see the number of packages that have been are being delivered. The total number of packages is the blue line, and then package downloads per month is the red line. So we're seeing significant growth in the Node community and usage and uptake of packages. But if we look at the Node core contributors, we're seeing this pretty rapid decline in the number of contributions to Node core. And that's backwards. We should be seeing lots and lots of more work being done in a Node core to improve performance, to add new features and support for all of these end users like myself that are using Node in production. And so this is a big problem. And the Node community has also been frustrated with some of the organizational problems with Joyent's leadership. And I should note that Node would not be what it is without Joyent. It's just that now we've sort of gotten frustrated with the leadership so far. You have to do a lot of work, and I've seen a couple of times where someone has raised an issue in core and end up having to do a ton of work just to even get recognition that there's actually a bug in core. And that's not good for an open source project. There's also, as a community, it's been difficult for us to help drive the direction of Node.js. So rewinding back to July of 2014, Michael Rogers, who's he's pretty big name in the Node community. He wrote the request module, if you've ever used that. He also runs NodeConf, which is one of the big Node conferences. He cares significantly about community and making sure that the Node community is a successful and healthy one. He created something called Node Forward, which quite succinctly is a broad community effort to improve Node, JavaScript, and the ecosystem through open collaboration. And one of the big things that came out of Node Forward was forming a technical committee of many of the Node core committers. I think something like 7 out of 9 of the Node core committers are all part of this technical committee. And on the open governance side of things and sort of transparency, all of the TC meetings are recorded via Google Hangouts and stored, and so you can go back and watch all of the TC meetings. And this TC is focused on which technical elements and what things to change about Node core and how we can improve some of the technical side of things. Now, around the same time, or shortly after, Joyent got a new CEO, Scott Hammond, and he very quickly recognized that community frustration is sort of backlash, and there was already talks about a Node fork. And so pretty quickly he formed a Node.js advisory board to help open this dialogue with the community. It was originally announced in October 23rd, but actually he started the process of trying to form this back in September. Interestingly, the Joint's advisory board, there's a couple of members of that which overlap with the technical committee. So there's these two committees that now are trying to focus on how to improve communication between Joint and Node Core and the community. And it'll be interesting to see how these two boards work out. So just sort of stepping back, look at the timeline. First, there's Node Forward. Then Scott Hammond started reaching out the discussion. In August, Node Forward was switched to a private, a GitHub repository, or GitHub organization. And at that time, it included a fork. And by fork, I mean a GitHub fork where you hit the giant fork button. However, on October 9th, Michael was told that this Node fork conflicted with Node.js trademark, and the repository was made private. So essentially, the lawyers got involved from Joint in that Joint does own the trademark and the copyright for Node.js, and if they don't protect it, then they're going to lose the rights to that. It gets invalidated. And so even though there was already discussions about, okay, what's the future and how do we work with the community and how do we get Node.js a community effort, they still had to legally protect it. But in November 26th, Fedor, who's one of the Node core committees, eventually sort of got fed up with doing all of this Node development on Node core in the Node forward Node repository, doing it all in private. He said, screw this. If the name is the problem, I'm going to rename it to IOJS, and I'm going to create an organization, and I'm going to publish it. And so that's what he did. And the Node Forward Technical Committee decided to move all of their development to this new IOJS org. And they set a deadline of January 13th to ship IOJS 1.0.0, and it just so happened that it coincided with Fedor's birthday. By just so coincides, I actually mean it was scheduled to be Fedor's birthday. And they hit the deadline too. So does IOJS compete with Joint or Node.js? In my opinion, no, not really, especially not with Joint. Now, does IOJS compete with Node.js? Right now, no. It wouldn't surprise me if at some point, depending on how some of these community and organizational things turn out, it could potentially compete. I think for the time being, IOJS really is an opportunity for the Node core team to rapidly improve Node, and also hopefully to get more people involved in working on Node core. And from my understanding, from both sides of both the Joint and the advisory board and Node Forward and their technical committee, that the goal here is to eventually merge IOJS back into Node, or to at least have some sort of relationship between the two, where IOJS is sort of the future unstable version, and Joint Node is the stable, enterprise-ready version. So some of the steps I think that have been said from both sides, from the Node Forward community, and how do we get IOJS, how do we get it back into Node.js? As a business owner myself, I can't help but be concerned about IOJS, in that forking of the technology that we're building our business around is a little scary. But I think that it's all going to be okay. I think Joint has an interest to fix the governance problem. I'm not sure how Joint's going to behave or how they're going to handle the idea of moving ownership to a foundation. There's a number of other open source projects that have been successful in that. But certainly, I think everyone does want to improve the release process. So yesterday, I had to redo some of my slides. Michael actually published a State of IOJS blog post on yesterday. Big things, there's been over 400,000 downloads of IOJS so far. Last week we added 8 new committers to IOJS, and that's actually, he says in the blog post something along the lines of that Node Core has never had more than 8 simultaneous core contributors, and IOJS has more than that added just last week. And perhaps most excitingly, they're saying this is going to be marked stable in March. And they've actually talked, Chris Dickinson has been working hard on setting the organizational structure of what IOJS releases are going to look like between a stable release, a release that's tracking internal changes versus the updates to dependencies like V8 and LNUG. Okay, so the good stuff. What is actually new with IOJS? So Node.js so Node.js 0.12 introduces a bunch of things, and IOJS includes a lot of them. However, IOJS also includes much newer versions of V8. So the second bullet point there, the 3.26.33 node, that 11.14 is what will be, or very close to what will be Node 0.12. But you'll notice that IOJS version 1 shipped a much newer version with a lot of breaking changes in V8. And so I'm going to get to that a little bit more about the changes to the V8 bindings. And just a sanity, something to keep in mind, IOJS 1.0.3 included a V8 upgrade to 4.1. That is not actually a major version jump. It's really a minor change. What has happened is the V8 team is synchronizing the version that is going in, that's part of V8 to the underlying system that's used in Chrome. So basically, V8 version now is going to be the same thing tied to what's in the latest Chrome release. And that's interesting for anybody who's been using things like Node WebKit. Now the version of Node is going to be the same across both. So we can have new versions of the browser that's running as well as Node behind the scenes. And the other big thing that is going to be in IOJS is that all of the new ES6 features are available without the -- Harmony flag. So the Harmony flag goes away and you just automatically get ES6 features. And if you go find the slides, you can get the change log and actually see the full complete list of everything that's changed since 10.35. So what else? Well, a lot of these things are what we've been told will be 0.12, but they're included in IOJS 1.0. Specifically, we've got a new version of NPM. So if you've ever had problems doing NPM installs with old versions of NPM, the NPM Inc. team has done a great job of updating a lot of those things. OpenSSL has got a new version, the Streams 3 API. If you like to use tools like Gulp or Grunt, having exec sync child processes is going to be really nice. There's some cluster round robin improvements, crypto, and I highly recommend watching Trevor Norris's talk he did at Node Day, which was here in the Bay Area about a month or two ago. He works at Node Source, and he went really, really deep into a lot of the buffer improvements and performance enhancements in Streams API. So I highly recommend spending some time and watching that talk. So perhaps most exciting is ES6. I mentioned that there's no more -- Harmony flag. We automatically get block scoping, let, const, collections, all those good things. The IOJS team has done a good job of publishing all of the ES6 things that are built in directly. And I found two other things that are helpful. I'm still familiarizing myself with ES6, but there's a really helpful ES6 compatibility table that will allow you to sort of see all the different browsers and all the different server-side technologies of what supports ES6, which flags, etc. And then if you're still learning ES6 like myself, there's an ES6 features exploration, which actually does a side-by-side comparison of ES5 versus ES6 and how things are going to look differently. So unfortunately, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There are problems with IOJS. A big one is that the new versions of V8 has broken all native modules. So if you use a native module, or if you use a Node module that has got some sort of C or C++ or Java or some sort of binding that's native, it's now broken. The community has been doing a great job of trying to go through and fix and find all of those modules. But with over 100,000 Node modules, there's going to be a lot of those, and so it's going to take a while. So for example, just last week, Bunyan, which is a logger that I use a lot, just finally got updated. If you are building native modules for Node, the encouraged thing is to go use something called Nan, which is particularly by Rod Bagg, who's currently the build master for IOJS. NAN is a pretty slick way of abstracting away V8, the underlying V8 API, and giving you a consistent API to build your Node modules. If you've ever done any Node school, the Learning Native or Going Native Node School workshop uses NAN. So if you ever want to play with native stuff, definitely take a look at that. There is an ongoing problem, which is that with the binary, the actual binary that gets installed, IOJS installs an IOJS binary, and then it does a symlink to the node binary. So if you already have Node installed and you go and download the Windows Node installer, or you install it on Mac, it's going to clobber your existing Node.js install. So that is a problem, and it's something to be aware of. And I think there's an issue that was written up yesterday on trying to improve that. And there's also this problem of, in your NPM package, you probably use something like defining an engine as node 0.10. You're now encouraged to do version 1.0 for IOJS. But if Node ever gets to a point where it's on the 1x series, there's potential problems with that. All right, so getting started. So first of all, installing IOJS. So you can download from iojs.org, and as I've mentioned, it does conflict with the Node.js core, the joint/Node.js. The preferred means for me is to use NVM, Node Version Manager. You can do NVM use 1.0, and it'll go ahead and automatically download IOJS for you. If you use N, support has been pull requested. It has not been merged yet. Homebrew, the Homebrew core maintainers have closed the issue to add support for IOJS, saying that it's too early of a project. But you can use Cask to install it, and I think the Cask was PR'd, and it may have actually be merged in now. NodeSource is working on a distribution for Red Hat and CoreOS, or CentOS and Ubuntu. And Heroku also already supports IOJS. So if you deploy to Heroku, you can now deploy against IOJS. Getting started contributing. So if you are artistically inclined, you can create a logo. There's been, gosh, probably at least hundreds of logos that have been generated for IOJS, and the IOJS community has decided that there's not going to be an official IOJS logo, that whoever is in charge of each individual release gets to pick the logo that will be used for that release. You can hang out if you use Freenode. There's the hash IOJS. Node/discussions has all of the more community and organizational side of things. And then the people are getting really, the working groups are, so the technical committee in Node Forward has created working groups for managing the build, the websites, and streams. And then there's going to be more coming through for things like internationalization and documentation and some of the other things. So if you want to get involved, they're looking for people to help out. So the long and short, so IOJS is a community fork of joint Node.js, focused on technical improvements, and I think will likely be merged back in if the governance issues get resolved. In my opinion, this is definitely healthy for the Node ecosystem. I've been wanting to use some of the new features and capabilities that have been in the 0.11 of joint release, but as a business person, I don't like risk. So I'm excited to see what the community is able to build quickly. But definitely strap yourself in. I think things are going to be bumpy for a while. And in my opinion, and what I tell some of the clients that I work with, definitely keep your production systems running Node.js for now, but it wouldn't hurt to start experimenting with some of the ES6 features. And that's all I've got. Thank you.